hopefully this will show up.
Yeah, the stream is live.
So I guess we're there. Just give a couple of minutes for people who are just joining in.
Yeah, of course, as usual.
Okay, on Facebook it works already. I can see it.
Great. So
yeah, I can also see myself.
Okay, watch live video.
let's
think we can
check the
watch
other
now.
channels and see if someone is listening.
I think there's something like followers. Something like that.
Okay, YouTube also works.
Yeah, add followers.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
So
This is done on Facebook.
I can see your comments.
Yeah, I should.
Good way to start the spring, as I said before, with legal talk.
Of course.
First day of spring, the weather is nice. So
exactly.
Okay. It started working also on LinkedIn. Okay, you can. There is no such thing as followers in LinkedIn. You can tag people.
yeah, we can start in a couple of minutes.
You have your intro video, no? We need to make an intro video with the music and everything. So.
Yeah, I know. Next time. We have an intro slide, which is almost as good. It doesn't move.
Small
it doesn't
steps.
Yeah, exactly. Step by step. Like
Exactly.
new kids on the block.
Okay. Great. So we already have 6 people connected over LinkedIn.
Oh, I can see the viewers here from Facebook and from YouTube.
Yeah.
But it doesn't show LinkedIn. So we give it 2 more minutes and then we should start.
Yes.
So I count down from 2 minutes would be too much, I guess. So as an intro video.
Yeah, I'm starting to tag some people I know that might be interesting about this, especially the marketplaces. I have also some friends.
And are you sending the comments from Facebook? Because we have the comments showing up here on our page.
Does it work here? Do you see it? Do you see comments?
Yeah, I can see your comments, yes.
Oh, nice.
See comment from Miter, so we probably don't have to monitor all channels separately, which is a good thing.
Connect your YouTube account to join the live chat. I just need to see. Okay, great. So, thank you everyone who started joining us. And today we have Bartek, we call you, or what's the...
Yeah, Bartek, of course.
Bartek is the, let's say, GDPR expert of today. And I think, Adam, you should do the intro.
Yeah, Bartek will be our main spokesperson today, and he'll be going through the basics of GDPR. So without further ado, Bartek, please tell us something about yourself for the viewers here.
Good afternoon. I'm Bartłomiej Doliński. For sure, Bartek. It's probably easier than Bartłomiej if I had to hazard a guess. I am trainee attorney at law at CKRP law firm based in Krakow. And as it is said on this slideshow, I am graduate of University in Krakow, and I deal mainly with civil administrative law with particular emphasis on commercial law. And today I have both the pleasure and the opportunity to participate in this event and to present to you a few, in my opinion, crucial aspects regarding the GDPR and issues of the personal data. I hope that this webinar will be eventful, and we will have, it will not only be me talking, but I hope that there will appear some questions from our listeners and viewers.
Yes, if you have questions, shoot them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them, or basically Bartek will do his best to answer them. And
Exactly.
yeah, just a quick recap. We've been working our company with Bartek's company for a couple of years now. They've been doing great stuff regarding legal documents and preparation for implementing GDPR for companies, but not only that. So let's go quick to the agenda. Bartek, right back to you.
Yes, in today's meeting, I would like to present few main aspects concerning GDPR. At first, I would like to talk about GDPR as a whole, present its general characteristics, but in the later part of this webinar, I would like to focus on something that I feel it's not as much known as other parts of GDPR, because well, GDPR is mainly known for the people in the Europe and European Union, but it also regards the aspects considering of for transfer of data outside of the European Union. So I'd like to put emphasis on legal aspects of that. And I would also like to put a few words about transparency and consent string as a personal data. I would like to talk about this during the part concerning the general characteristics of GDPR, because I would like to present to you what exactly is personal data, because of course the GDPR has a definition of it, but in the past 6 years, in 2 months we have a 6th anniversary of implementation of GDPR. In the last 6 years we have there arose many questions. Where is the proverbial line in the sand between personal data and things that are not personal data? So basing on the transparency and content string, I would like to show that some things may not be as clear as they would be at the first glance. And in the end, I would like to summarize this short presentation. I think that it will conclude. And after that, of course, I will be available to answer in the best of my capacity for your questions.
Okay, great. So let's move ahead. And as far as I know, the GDPR has also been the first version and the second version. Am I right? Or is there? So they changed during the first stages of its implementation. And now, if you know the first part, you probably should stick around because something's changed in the second iteration of it.
Yes, exactly. So GDPR.
Yes? Sorry, Bartek, but I want to emphasize something, that this concerns anyone, any company that processes data that concerns e-residents. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As far as I know, it's shown on the next slide. Adam, if you could move it forward, because there is exactly who does the GDPR apply to. So GDPR apply to companies and entities processing personal data as a part of their activities of itself or its branches established in the EU, regardless of where the data is processed. So if an entity is based in EU, GDPR is being applied to it. And in situations where the company is established outside of the EU, but it does offer goods and or services, it's irrelevant whether or not it's paid or for free to the individuals, natural persons in the European Union, or when they are monitoring the behavior of individuals in the European Union. So to cut things short, any business related with European Union, with personal of people in European Union, should take into account that GDPR will come knocking at its door, and it will be needed to actually implement its correct policies regarding GDPR. So, in my opinion, that's actually important because, as I said before, for Europeans, GDPR is normal. Yeah, we grew accustomed to it. I remember when I was studying and it came to force, and it was like everything comes under GDPR, etc., etc. And Now it's calmer, but I think that people outside of the European Union should also bear that in mind. So yeah, okay. As most of you probably know, yeah.
Let's circle back to the general
Yeah, a little bit.
characteristics. Skip a little bit
Exactly.
about the general characteristic. If you can tell us something
Yeah.
about it.
GDPR, as probably most of you know, is European Union regulation concerning data privacy. Its importance cannot be understated, and is currently one of the most important and recognized legal acts in Europe. And I would probably hazard a guess that it's quite known outside of the Europe as well. Considering its scope, it would be both irresponsible and impossible to present all of aspects that are key from the point of view of GDPR during today's talk. So, as I mentioned before, I would like to focus on two things: on the part on general characteristic of this act, and on the transfer of personal data outside of the European Union. So, as I mentioned before, also GDPR was made on the 14th April 2016 and came into force 2 years later on the 25th of May 2018. Curious thing about this legal act is that slightly over a third of its length consists of a preamble. Preamble is a part of legal act that usually is skipped or omitted. Of course, there are many reasons for that. One of the main ones is because this part does not contain any legal norms that shape rights and obligations of legal entities. Of course, this way of thinking could be risky, and GDPR is one example. Why? Because in GDPR, this part contains both the crucial guidelines and often examples of the correct application of the GDPR and its provisions. The provisions, individual provisions of the GDPR, can and should be interpreted in relation to relative motives of the preamble, and only that mode of operation allows us to know exactly what is the scope of GDPR and what its provisions stand for. But legal GDPR came into force, was implemented. But why exactly was it implemented? Well, GDPR as a whole is based on the notion that the protection of natural persons in relation to the processing of personal data is a fundamental human right stemming from both the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union and the Treaty of Functioning of the European Union. The GDPR itself also states that it aims to harmonize the protection of the fundamental rights and freedoms of natural persons in respect of processing activities, and to ensure free flow of the personal data across the member states of the European Union. So as we can see, these things determine that the key aspect in regard to GDPR is the protection of personal data. That can be obvious, but considering current times and many aspects of actions towards personal data of natural persons, this kind of protection, this umbrella over the personal data of entities in European Union is quite a good safeguard.
I think
But
that I'm sorry to interrupt you, but also
yeah, of course, no problem.
We should also precise what is when we say about personal data. What is this personal data? And
yeah, exactly.
Data it is what you are talking about.
Yeah, of course, as I said before, the GDPR answers the question what is personal data, and Article 4 determines that personal data means any information relating to identified or identifiable natural persons. It means that almost everything could be defined with it. Things that identify the person or can identify. For example, identifiers such as names, specific characteristics, identifications numbers, locations, data, And here stems the question: where is the proverbial line in the sand? On the second slide was when there was the plan of presentation given, there was a mention of TC string. TC string, or the transparency and consent string, is a string of digital signals created by a consent management platform containing data subjects choosing regarding the processing of their personal data in advertisement, content, and measurement purposes. It was used, if I recall correctly, it came from Belgium, but recently, it was 2 weeks ago exactly, if I remember correctly, it was on the 7th of March 2024, Court of Justice of the European Union has stated in its judgment that TC string is personal data. So it does fall under the protection of the GDPR. And in light of that new situation, the company that made that string has to actually move forward with a response to that advancement of the situation, because it was probably not prepared for that. Because it is a string of data, and does it identify a person? Probably on its own, no. But when we take into account, for example, the IP, the person can be identified. And in light of this view, the European Court of Justice of the European Union has stated that it is personal data. So, as you can probably see, personal data can be defined quite broadly, and when corporate entities as a whole think about what is a personal data, they should think carefully and plan on both outcomes, because who knows what the future will bring. Maybe someday a Court of Justice will decide that this aspect, this thing that they were using, that maybe not directly identifies a person, could identify it indirectly, so it would fall under the GDPR.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
guess
so
a good example of that is actually, as you mentioned, the IP number or the IP address, because many people can share the same IP when they connecting to a server or what have you. So this is an interesting situation where one information can be shared as a personal data for many people, and and you have to take it into account when you're collecting them.
exactly.
And I have a question, because maybe some of our viewers have the same question, that when GDPR first came into play, a lot of people were thinking that this was a way for big corporations to weaponize personal data, because they have the lawyers, the legal background, that they can use this to kind of quench the smaller companies and kill them with legal information. How do you respond to this accusation?
Well, as we can see now from the perspective of these 6 years, as I stated before, it doesn't work like that. Not at all, actually. The GDPR, what the GDPR aims, as I stated before, is to protect personal data of natural persons. This is the thing. Of course, big entities, it's probably not surprising to anyone, can and will act in a way that will try to go around certain regulations. That is how it is, and there is nothing to say about this. But GDPR has proven to be, in my opinion, of course, has proven to be an effective tool to protect the data of the natural persons. So yeah, that's my opinion. I'm not sure how both of you look at this, and our listeners view at this, but in my opinion, yeah, it's like I said before.
So in the case of a small company, how can they, I think because it's this destiny of anyone who processes any kind of data that can identify other people in the, say, in the EU region, what should they put internally as a process to protect themselves and to be GDPR compliant, let's say.
Okay, so we are coming into the practical aspects of GDPR. So when it comes to that, they of course have to determine based on what will they be processing data. Of course, here we come into the contact with another definition, because before I answer questions, GDPR has a lot of definitions. For example, processing of data. What exactly is processing of data? Processing of data is operation on data, operation or operations on data or sets of data that processes the personal data. And as was in the example of the personal data, here are given examples of what actions constitute processing. For example, collecting, recording, organization, storing. All of these actions put the entity that is all of these actions are processing, and in turn put the entity that is doing them in the definition of a controller, because they are in control of the personal data of the natural person. And when it comes to this, the entities that are actually dealing with personal data ought to answer the same. Why are they actually processing the data of the natural persons, and what scope, and based on what? Because GDPR has gives six clauses in Article 6, if I recall correctly, that determine the legal scope of processing data. Of course, first one, and for example, concerning the cookies or pop-ups, consent. You are actively agreeing. You receive relevant information that gives you, maybe, of course, it will be all information that is relevant from the point of view of your consent, what will be your data used for, etc. But you actually agree to processing of your data. Of course, GDPR also has other basis for the legal processing of data. For example, processing data in regards to legally binding contracts. If, for example, there is a data of person there, and processing of its data is necessary for the sake of the completion of contract, it's also will be legal. So the key, of course, disregarding the whole organization process, of course, there is needed to be for a privacy policy. The natural persons need to be informed of the aspects I mentioned before, why, on basis of what their data is processes. Of course, GDPR concerns also the right to appeal to the organ. For example, in Poland, we have Prezesa UODO. So it's, so there is this control organ who oversees the protection, the procedures regarding GDPR in countries. So there is this set of actions that need to be undertaken from the procedural point of view, but also the main basis, I will return to it again, that is the legal ground for the processing of data. You need, this entity has to look at the Article 6 and ask itself, why I am, based on what am I processing this data. So it's, of course, it's not as simple. It's not a process that will take a moment. Of course, you have to spend some time to prepare yourself and your entity, corporation or otherwise, to be in position that there won't be any violations of the GDPR.
So could we summarize for companies that are thinking about collecting data to only collect as much data as you really need, and not to get everything you think you need, and then have problems
Yes.
because you're processing too much data on your
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, it's better to have less than more. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's
I love
very
that.
nicely summarized.
I
Very
love
nicely
it.
summarized. That's very good, actually.
Yeah, I think
Of
because some
course.
companies, especially companies that are intensively processing data, like especially AI companies that use large models or that kind of stuff, they need a lot of data, and they consider themselves like going to the store and get any kind of data I can find,
Almost.
and just put it over there. It doesn't work
Yeah.
that way anymore, guys. So you need to be very
You need
careful.
to
And I
stop.
think and I think, especially in this, because I remember there is an article about automation, anything about automation and processing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, of
And
course, of course.
yeah,
GDPR also concerns the automation. Of course, processing data, definition of the processing
very
data.
general.
Yeah, exactly. So automated processing of the data is also processing of data, so it also falls under GDPR. Moreover, if I recall correctly, in case of the automated processing of data, the natural person has to be informed of this. So it's not like they will be silent about that. They have to go forward with their initiative and actually inform the people that they are doing this way. So
I
they
will go a
can
little bit technical and address especially companies that do web scraping, where they can automate bots and go to websites and gather data. They need to inform those websites that are doing that, and they risk a lot of penalties regarding that. Yeah.
Yeah, Rodo is quite famously known for its steep curves of the penalties. Yes, exactly. If I will find 1 second, I have to written an article by the end. How much are current fines in the light of
Yeah.
GDPR?
I think it's
So
up
they are
to 20 million euros
20 million or 5%, whichever is more. If
or
but I'm
4%
not sure.
of global revenue.
Yeah, global revenue, but I won't. I would like to check. Yes, it's Article 83. It's infringement of the provisions shall be subject to administrative fees up to 20 million euro, or in the case of undertaking, up to 4% of the total worldwide annual turnover for the preceding financial year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
So if a company
4% of
thinks,
the revenue is quite
yeah,
hurtful. Can be one hurtful. So it's, in my opinion, quite an effective way to stop organizations from acting
yeah,
in
you
violation
have it
of the
here.
GDPR.
You have it here on the slide.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. That's why I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. So if you think as a company you don't have time to consider reviewing how you are processing data, think again. Remember the 20
Yeah.
million euros and or the 4%.
If you have
Yeah.
the money,
Exactly.
you have the time.
Yeah. Exactly. It's worth that.
But it's a
So yeah,
pretty big penalty considering.
of course, it's 4% of the annual revenue. That's really a lot. When we take into account the big giants, for example, from the IT sector or business sectors,
We know
that
which one.
can. Yeah, we know. Yeah, maybe not which one especially, but we know around where we are talking about, around which
The
ones.
information is public. We can say like for example
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, Google about the consent for the Android phones, where, especially on Android and mobile phones, they didn't, ask explicitly the user that they will be storing this kind of data, and they will find. You have Marriott hotels when they had a breach on their own system, and they were leak of data, especially on debit cards for people who booked on the hotels. They had millions of euros of fine, and and so that's why, for example, a recent feature on LinkedIn that you remember that, Adam, that the when you verify your profile, even LinkedIn, they used a trusted third party which is called
Yes.
Persona, that and they tell you specifically how many days they will be storing the information about your NFC passports. Be very, very precise regarding that.
I guess we are scared the people a little bit, but there's there's also thing you can do, because there's not that if the data has leaked and something happened, not because of you wanted to be, but by accident, you also have time to act. And what do you have to do to mitigate? How long do you have to mitigate your error?
It's also stated, I think, in the GDPR that if you have something like that, you have some time to inform your local legal authority. That's like the one that you mentioned.
This supervisory authority has to be informed in cases that the unauthorized leak of the personal data has occurred. Of course, this also comes back to our talk about the procedures that companies and entities has to put. They have to when they are preparing the documentations, their actions that they will be taking in regard to personal data, they have to ask themselves, how risky is the processing of data? How probable is that there will be some accidents that will lead to leak of the personal data of natural persons? And they have put appropriate measures that will both minimize those risks and that they will lead to appropriate responses to that situation that if that has already happened. Yeah, but I think that we slightly erred from the path, and because. Of course, if you have some questions more, we can talk, but I think that we should probably move forward because I don't see.
So
One before probably
Okay,
because
so
for non-EA entities, yes, exactly, because this is quite important, as I said before, and it's probably not as much known as other aspects of GDPR, because GDPR has provisions that allow for the transfer of personal data outside of the EA. These provisions are found in Chapter 5 of GDPR, and the basis of this chapter is that personal data can be transferred to the third countries or international organizations only in the situation that the conditions laid out in this chapter are met. Basically, there are two grounds for transfer of personal data outside of the EEA. First of them is, easiest, and countries that they find themselves in the situation that they can use it are probably very lucky because they don't have to do anything. It's a decision of the Commission on the subject that the third country has an adequate level of protection. So GDPR lists a number of particulars that need to be taken into account by the Commission during deliberation whether or not to implement this decision on the subject that the third country has an adequate level of protection. I don't think that's quite important, and I won't be exactly talking about them because I don't think that anyone from Commission is watching us, and if they are, they probably know about this a little more than we do, and it's not quite important from the company point of view. But currently there are 16 these decisions. For example, for Israel, for the Japan, for New Zealand, for Switzerland, or for Uruguay. And companies and entities in these countries are quite lucky, as I said before, because they can just transfer data to these countries, and there's that, because there's a legal ground for this. Other nations, companies in other nations are not as lucky because the secondary ground for transfer of personal data to third countries and international organizations, in the absence of this before mentioned decision of the Commission, determines that the controller may transfer personal data only if it has provided appropriate safeguards, and on the condition that there is an enforceable data subject rights and effective legal remedies for data subjects in this country. There is a list of examples. What are those appropriate safeguards? For example, there are legally binding and enforceable instruments between public and public authorities or bodies. So if a given country has a legislation that does deal with that data protection and is deemed appropriate in the light of GDPR and its provisions. Another example is binding corporate rules that can be found in the Article 47 of the GDPR. So it's these provisions, these grounds for transfer are more, of course, they are viable for the business point of view, but entities that have the intention to transfer data to the third countries that are not on the list of countries that they are decision, they had to provide these appropriate safeguards. The data has to be secure, and it comes into the situation that there is also third way to transfer data outside of the European Union, but in my opinion, it's not viable from the business point of view. The GDPR takes into account that these two grounds, legal basis, may not be maybe not be sufficient for this transfer, and it states that in absence of decision or adequate decisions, adequate safeguards. In the case-to-case basis, when there is a special situation, transfer of data may be concluded to the third country. But as I stated before, it's not viable. For example, transfer on this ground is legal if it is necessary for the performance of contract. So there is some similarities between these grounds and the grounds from Article 6, which determine the legality of processing as a whole, but it's not one-to-one comparison. Yes, exactly.
What if you want to share data, or we have to share data with other companies, like, I don't know, we have not medium-sized companies, small companies that doesn't have the money to create their own internal CRM or other customer relationship or what have you system, and they do have to transfer some data to other companies. What they need to take into account when doing so? For example, if you want to if the user fills out a form on your website and the information is shared with a CRM that's not but you're buying a subscription for an external service. What in this case? How does the GDPR apply there?
Well, in this case, the GDPR, the data is actually transferred out. Of course, there could be taken measures. For example, and data could be encrypted in the way that it would not lead to identifying a person. But in such cases, entities should really think about their procedures and whether or not, for example, it wouldn't be better to move maybe not a whole company, or for example part of the company, to a nation that is in the European Union. In that case, and this part of the company will be dealing with processing the data of the personal data in the light of the GDPR, so that there won't be any violations of this legal act.
You need to have a European company, or is it also sufficient to use a database server that is in EU?
Okay, that's interesting question. So we have company that is outside of EEA, and it has a server in EEA.
Yeah.
Okay, but the data still is transferred outside of the EEA because
no, it's the data, for example, stays and processed in that database server, but
Okay.
it is being accessed outside e e
Okay, but this accessing data, I will need to go back. Is it in the definition of processing? Adaption.
so
I
the
would
data
say
stays
that
there. Data stays
yes,
there.
the data stays, but there is the question: how far does the processing go? Processing of personal data go? Is accessing personal data processing of personal data or not? I'm actually not sure in this case that you have stated right now. I would need
Because the data is not
to.
transferred, it's processed on spot.
Yes, yes, but it is collected, stored, and etc. in the place, but it is
Everything there,
accessed. Yeah, exactly.
but it's accessed
Um,
outside. Uh,
Okay, but accessing, if I remember correctly, is not in this string of that is
yeah.
used to do define processing, but there is use, if I recall correctly. So the data is used, accessed, and so it's used because the entity outside of the EA is using it. So I, at this moment, would probably say that it's also the situation that there is a transfer of data outside of the EA
It
because
might be considered as a
it's
transfer of data because it's used outside. Yeah.
yeah.
It,
I'm not 100% sure about that. I will get back to you about this, but I would probably go with this interpretation right now.
Okay, so we'll give the updates in the LinkedIn post and comments
yeah,
Yeah,
I think
about
exactly.
this because it's an
I think
interesting
this topic
topic.
is I think this topic is too wide. I would suggest even like each time take one article and dive deep into it for 15 minutes because the viewers will be fed up with 1 hour of GDPR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that's why I would suggest to have a little summary, and then we can also talk about how we, apart from as a legal side and technical side, can help the users with implementation and yeah, getting around all the legal information that they can be lost because it's really complex topic.
Yeah, it really is. There, as I stated before, there is a lot of work to for a company to be legally prepared for the scope of the GDPR. As I stated before, there are legal documents that have to be prepared. Of course, for example, if we have company outside of EA, there is need to verify the both legal and factual status of this company, of its aims and its strategy to take efficient measures to actually implement policies inside company policies that will lead to situations that there won't be any violations of the GDPR. So yes, it's not a simple job. The GDPR is complex. There is a lot of work for companies to do, but it's not impossible. It's something that if it is put into place correctly, it will serve for a long time.
And would you say that depending on the company's size, the scope or the amount of legal documents varies, or is it the same amount for every company size?
Legal, no, I would say that it stays approximately the same. Of course, bigger companies can, for example, because they have probably both the time and money to vary the documents to prepare itself better, but it does not matter that much in my opinion because smaller entities can also effectively be prepared to work with the GDPR. So I don't think that it's as important. Smaller, medium entities should not be afraid of the GDPR. It's not something that is a scary dragon or something that will ensure its downfall. It's something that has to be implemented correctly and it will work. As simple as that, in my opinion.
Okay. And in that regard, so would you like recommend for companies that are using intensively, let's say, the data to be insured, like make an insurance for the company So if something happens as infringement of GDPR, they are covered.
Okay, that's an interesting question. I was not expecting actually. I think that being insured is of course something that is helpful. I'm not sure how the insurance companies will look at the aspects concerning the probable violations of the GDPR. I think that they can take into account. Of course, here comes the reality of the potential risks. You have to weigh them out if you think that the risk of potential leak and potential infringements concerning GDPR are high enough that they make the probable that they make the insuring helpful. I think that the important here is the measuring this out. How likely is it that there will be an authorized leak of the personal data? And if, in your opinion, for example, if you are processing data on mass scale, or if the data is processed in a way that has potential to be leaked, then maybe being insured will be helpful. As I said, it depends on the situation of the company.
And also kind of binding into this slide here, because there are services where you can kind of generate your legal documents. There are more one size fits all. Would you suggest this is a good idea for companies, or would you rather stray away a little bit from it, because there can be some legal issues then combined with a mass generated data protection documents? Or how would you come about this, that you should probably contact an agency before you generate the documents and think you are safe?
You mean if I want to ensure that I'm correctly getting what you're saying. You say that there is a risk in mass producing documents, right?
Yes, there are services that you input your data and they produce legal documents for you without getting the knowledge from a law firm like yours. And
Okay.
what are the dangerous
Of course.
sides of this approach?
And of course, it also comes to the scope with the GDPR, because are you informed in what way will your data be processed, what will be done with your data? Of course, this is automation. It's getting you're inputting your data, it's collecting your data, it's outputting legal documents with your firm legal name. All of this stuff that falls under the protection of GDPR, and you may be not sure what is done with your data in other areas. So I would probably not recommend doing that. If as I said before, GDPR is an extensive document that has a lot of provisions that needs to be applied to companies in specific situations, that these companies need to think about why they are processing data and what scope will be they processing the data, what will be the risk of the processing data. So these aspects, I don't think that can or should be automized. And I think that if there are any situations that in which there is a necessary legal counsel, you should probably go to the person who actually is professional in this aspect. The same as with the doctors. If you have, I don't know, hurting teeth, you are not going to, I don't know, guy in the park. You are going to a appropriate specialist. So yes.
Or getting some herbs to cure yourself.
I didn't want to go there, because there are people who are for that kind of resolution. I'm not among them, but yeah.
get professional help. This is
Yes,
Yeah,
the summary
exactly.
is
There's also always get someone professional to look at your problem. It doesn't matter if it's law, medicine, technical aspects concerning implementation of cookies, for example. These people are specialists for a reason. They are doing this thing on the daily basis, and they have more experience than, for example, someone who's selling herbs. So yeah.
So be careful when generating documents, and usually go to the specialist to get specialist advice about those types of legal documents, and don't be surprised if those that you generate aren't protecting you enough as those that a legal law or law firm would provide for you.
Yeah, because usually there are just an example of the basic provisions. Yeah, there are not taking usually they are not taking into account the specific situation of entity that wants to be protected. So yeah, you can input, you will get, but this protection one may be not enough, and two, and most importantly, will be, even if we'll be protecting, it will be most basic and not adjusted to your specific situation and your specific aims, needs, or your strategy as an entity as a whole. So yeah, go to the specialist.
Okay.
Adam, you
You
are
are muted,
muted, I
Adam.
think. Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add this little banner here
Yeah.
Yeah.
for a
It sounds,
summary.
yeah, it's a good summary of life as a whole. If something is wrong, go see a specialist. That's
Yep.
good motto to go by.
And on that regard, I don't know if you have any questions from our viewers, but you can also ask our guest directly if you have any further question about GDPR, how to implement, and what are the pitfalls maybe that you can run into with implementation. Here are the contact information for Bartek, and yeah, I guess you can shoot him, and also they can also find you in LinkedIn.
Yes, they will. I will. Yeah. I am, of course, open to any questions regarding both today's webinar and regarding the actual professional aspects of GDPR. If you or your entity wants to implement or be prepared to not be in violation of GDPR, of course, we invite you to contact. Here are, as Adam said, my number, my data, but here is also the website of the law firm I'm working at and the email address of this law firm. We have a few specialists that would be delighted to help you with regard to the GDPR. So once again,
Yeah,
if you have any problems, ideas in this regard, we are open
this
to
is
questions.
my go-to firm when it comes to GDPR. So I've been working with them for a lot of years. I'm really happy with it. So, and I hope I don't jump the gun here, but if you have a specific question, we can do another webinar with more in-depth.
Yeah, of course, I'm open to it. So if
I think it will be good to have a webinar with the hands-on, like show the people like this is the kind of process that you need to put in place.
yeah,
Roll
because
out.
today we have had a lot of theory, and theory
Yeah.
is not probably the best for everyone. Some people would prefer, and of course that's normal, to see the practical approach in regard to that. So yeah, it could be good to have a webinar with those aspects included.
So if you have any ideas, the people who are listening, if you have any problems, you can shoot them in the comments, and we will think about making a hands-on webinar, which basically shows you what you need to do and why do you need to see a specialist in regard of, for example, GDPR.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's, if you don't have any questions right now, I had many questions because this is a very broad topic and legal stuff I always like to outsource. So if you have any questions, you can leave us in the comments, contact us directly. And yeah, if there are any typical or many questions that are about the same, you can do a hands-on approach in the future and we will let you know when. Usually we do this type of stuff at the same time each week.
Thursday, 3 p.m. CET.
Thursday, 3 p.m. Central European time. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Perfect.
We will see about summer when it comes.
Yeah, summer will be a question mark. But
Exactly.
thank you very much, Bartek, for shining a light
Thank
on GDPR in a simple manner and in simple words. And I hope the users our viewers get some more information about this. This will be left on LinkedIn if you want to return to this talk. It will be also on YouTube. And yeah, that's all from me. If you have anything to add, you're welcome to.
I want to thank you for this opportunity and for having me. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you
and
all.
see you next
And
week.
hopefully the next time.
Yep. Take care. Bye, everybody.